And we're live on a Wednesday morning. Good morning and happy midweek to you. Coming to you live from aboard our pirate ship, of course, because it's Wednesday. You know what we do on Wednesday. If you guys don't remember why we do the pirate stuff on Wednesday, in our traditional stream, Wednesday was the day we talk about attacks and threats and that kind of stuff. We can't talk about that most days now, but we held on to Wednesday being our pirate day just because it's the right thing to do. You got to wear a pirate t-shirt every once in a while if you work in security. It's just the way of the world. It's the way we got to do things. So lots and lots going on in the computer security world. Hang around a little later. The second session we'll be talking about system sprawl, and we'll be talking about architecture and design flaws as it relates to computer security, as it relates to your preparation and taking the Security Plus certification exam. So, trying to get my words together on Wednesday. Man, it's hard. It's hard without your cup of illy coffee. Got to get it going. If you couldn't guess, this isn't it is Dallas. Dallas-Fort Worth area. Big tech area, Dallas-Fort Worth. If you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, you know that this is a tech center. This is a lot of tech jobs going on there, a lot of manufacturing going on there as well, a lot of places for tech. So let's jump in. Let's talk about the news. Let me get myself set up. There's a bunch of stuff going on today, a bunch of stuff. Trying to focus kind of on what we need to know. So right off the bat, I got things in the wrong place. Let's move that over there. And let's get this a little bit bigger so we can talk about it. And system's lagging a little bit. But first thing we're talking about, this is one of your threat actor groups. This is called the
Scattered Canary group. It's a group of threat actors, and they're from Nigeria. So if you hear about Scattered Canary, I don't think they have an officially tagged logo yet, but this is canaries around a computer. Makes sense. So this group, Scattered Canaries, has, like many folks, has looked at the CARES Act that was recently passed in the United States. It's expanded some ability for businesses to get loans. It's allowed people to get extended unemployment benefits. It's done a lot of stuff to try to help people through this COVID-19 pandemic we have right now. And what they've realized is that in a flaw in Gmail, Dakota doing his thing over there, there's a flaw in Gmail that allows you to put a period anywhere within the email address, and it will resolve the same way. So if you had leroy.jenkins at gmail.com, Leroy Jenkins, without the dot, would resolve the same way. The mail would go to the same address. It would be received without a problem. So you could put a period between every letter, a period between the names, a period between every other letter. So you could create a bunch of different email addresses that all resolve to the same Gmail address. They'd all go to the same inbox. So what this group, Scattered Canaries, has done is they've applied for government loans. They've applied for unemployment. They've done a bunch of stuff, and they've used a single Gmail account with a bunch of different variations using the period in different places throughout the email address. And they're exploiting this, and some of the stats are crazy. I wouldn't have thought they would. You'd think there's some checking within the government. You would, but so between April 15th and 29th, the IRS noted at least 82 fraudulent claims, and about 30 of those passed verification and likely were paid. The IRS isn't going to say they were paid, but they passed validation. There were 174 fraudulent claims in Washington state alone since April 29th, and some of these were up to $790 a week. So as you can imagine, this could be huge. Massachusetts, they did the same thing. They caught 17 unemployment claims. That was up to $823. Caught 2 in Hawaii. But the ones they're catching, that's good. It's the ones, that they're not catching. How many are they missing? How many are getting through? But it's just another way people are taking something simple, like a Gmail account, and they're finding out flaws in the way that it was designed. And I'm sure it was designed with functionality in mind. Like somebody, you give out your email, john.smith. Somebody types it in, John Smith, without the period. It's still going to get to your your inbox. Angari Cyber Intelligence Division is a company that offers protection against advanced email accounts. They noticed 259 different variations of a single email address. Crazy. And Scattered Canaries are using this for large-scale defrauding activities, right? What else we got going on? We also have a new-ish Bluetooth attack. Right? So this is a short-range attack on Bluetooth devices. They're calling this one, it's been dubbed the Bluetooth Impersonation Attack, or BIAS, B-I-A-S, Bluetooth Impersonation Attack. That's my crazy Wednesday voice, I guess. So we know stuff like blue snarfing and blue stuffing and things like that maybe were less invasive, but this is pretty invasive. When the attacker makes the connection, They can either operate in either slave or master mode, which means they could either be operating something like a keyboard to provide input to your device, or they could be acting as a device that is controlling your device. It looks like iPhone 8 and older, 2018 iPads and older, and 2017 MacBook Pros and older are all susceptible to this attack. And really what it does, it's an attacker impersonating a device that your machine previously connected to, and then the connection is automatically enabled, and depending on how the connection was set up, if it was set up as a keyboard, then the attacker could provide input to your machine. If it was set up as the master, then obviously there's a lot more damage that could be done. Obviously, this is not just tied to Apple. Apple's just been the most recent one that's been discovered. This is also a vulnerability in Google, LG, Motorola, Nokia, and Samsung. And it can be carried out using some very low-cost equipment, like a Raspberry Pi that's right around $40. So, again, not good news for folks in the world of older iPhones, I guess. Next thing we got up on the plate, Google is rolling out, and this actually was rolled out yesterday, was a news brief that Google released yesterday. Enhanced safe browsing is available in Google Chrome. So this enhanced safe browsing protection is available in Google Chrome, and it's going to those folks that don't want to provide your data, it's going to use some of your data to determine if you're being directed to phishing sites, if you're downloading malicious code. It uses a form of heuristics to view your patterns, the patterns of your web browsing. Some people may not like that, but they say it's not necessarily tied to you, but it's tied to your profile. There's a lot you're going to have to look into if you're going to want to do this. To turn it on, let's see. It's under security. Let's see what the website says here. Okay, so go to privacy and security settings, security, and then select enhanced protection mode under safe browsing. This is from a press release from Google. And as always, I'll throw the links to all these articles in the show notes so you can go read them, at your leisure. And obviously, the thing about this is it's updating rapidly. It's updating malicious sites every about 30 minutes. One of the things we found is phishing sites, the command and control, the upstream link that the phishing sites are trying to get you to go to, they change rapidly. So this is trying to counter that and change rapidly as well. Bad news for our Windows crowd. Not much to go into this one. There's 5 new 0 days. So there's patches not available for these things yet. The majority of these have a score of 7 out of 10 on the criticality scale from CVSS. One of them is like a 2.5, but the other ones are at 7, so that's pretty high. Excuse me. That's a pretty high rating still. So you want to look at this. There's obviously it's a 0 day. There's no patch yet. So look out for the patches. They may be released out of cycle. Probably gonna have to wait till next patch Tuesday for them to come out. Just life with Windows. If you're using Windows, you're in the 80 to 90% of the market. You're gonna be ripe for attack. Not that any other system is inherently better. It's just you're a bigger target. You're a bigger target with Windows than you are with Mac or Linux. So you're going to get more attacks thrown at you. That's just the way it is. But 5 new 0 days. A lot of them, looks like 3 of them, allow the attacker to escalate privileges on the affected system. The other one is just a pointer dereferencing. and one is privilege escalation and can execute code in the context of the administrator. So definitely some ugly stuff out there. And on our phishing front, as you can imagine, because of what's going on with COVID-19, at least here in the United States, there are a ton of new phishing campaigns that are centered around different types of notifications from what's being prompted as government agencies. So Proofpoint has tracked more than 300 campaigns where people have created entire environments that mimic the IRS, FEMA, Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the White House, World Health Organizations, and French and UK governments. Obviously, this is much easier than it used to be. It's almost point and click now to copy a site, recreate it, and then try to get someone to that site, try to get them over there, and phish them to get them to install malicious code. You got to be aware. If you're the security person at your organization, if you're the security guru of your group of friends and family, be aware. There's a lot of stuff going on, like the Nigerian stuff earlier we talked about, the phishing scams. There's a lot of, earlier in this week we talked about phishing scams that were centered around notification of your payments from COVID-19 relief payments. It's all bad. It's all bad stuff out there that we've got to be, if you're the security person, you have to be paranoid about some of this stuff. You have to be worried about some of this stuff. And that's what we do. I mean, as security, that's our mindset, is we have to be thinking about what is the bad guy going to do with some of the stuff that's going on. And right now, it's terrible stuff that's going on. They do the same stuff when great stuff's going on. When the Olympics are going on or when sports seasons are going on, that's what they use for their phishing campaigns. Right now, they're using this for their phishing campaigns. So be leery. Tell your friends to be leery. Tell your family to be leery. Tell your coworkers to be leery of COVID-19 emails. Make sure they're really checking them. Use your best practices for email protection. That's all we can. That's all we can do. What's today? Let's look at the day. Today is Be a Millionaire Day. That's May 20th. Apparently nobody knows who created this. I don't think it's not national. Even if you're not a millionaire, you're supposed to be, thinking about how to become a millionaire. So tips from the website: review your investments, look at ways to improve them, review your investment portfolio with a planner, increase your deposits to savings account, start or add to 401k, review your spending, go to a casino. That's funny. All these other things are very financially sound. Casinos are more a leisure activity. And the bottom of their points here: all else fails, buy a lottery ticket, just one. So their thought for the day: all I ask is for a chance to prove that money doesn't buy happiness. Great news. The other thing we have to make sure you know about, and you have to be aware of, is Trivia Night. Is Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Mike Bravo has accepted the challenge. He's asked, you challengers to step up. He's replied online. He said he's ready for all takers. Come try to dethrone Mike Bravo. This week, throwing in movies, as we talked about, I think yesterday. Movie clips will be there. Do you know your movie trivia? Some are easy, some are hard, as they should be. We covered the gambit of hacker movies. You can guess some of them probably right now. You could probably make a good guess at some of them, but we're going to try to keep you on your toes, because there's some that may get you. And some you may not even think are hacker movies. But that's the center. That's what we're focusing around, hacker movies and obviously security. We'll probably still be focusing on Domain 1 of the common body of knowledge for Security Plus, because that's where we're kind of training around. So that's what we'll keep the trivia around. We stray a little bit, but try to keep generally to that topic. So, that being said, this morning we're also going to talk about getting ready for Security Plus. We're going to cover two topics this morning: system sprawl and weak design and weak architecture, how those can impact you. So hang out after the quick intro. We'll be back. Let's get our normal backdrop up here. There we go. Back right after the intro. All right, so let's roll with it. Let's get where we need to get to go. Speaking of, all right, we're gonna start off with system sprawl. This is again, we're still in domain 1, and domain, I've said it at least 4 or 5 times. Domain 1 is huge. There's a lot of stuff going on in domain 1. Domain 1 is about a quarter of the exam. It's going to be things you need to know. This is foundational stuff. So domain 1 and domain 2 are huge. Between those two domains, it's about half of the exam. So this one we're talking about 1.6, part of 1.6, system sprawl and undocumented assets. This is stuff that'll get you, right? So undocumented assets, you have to make sure that hardware and software assets are accounted for. We know that within security, assets are the thing we're protecting, right? In addition to hardware and software assets, remember that data and information is an asset as well. Hardware and software assets are the number 1 and number 2 controls in the SANS or the CIS top 20. Number 1, keep track of your hardware. Number 2, keep track of your software. If you don't know what hardware you have, if you don't know where it's at, if you don't know how it's configured or how it's connected to your network, there's no way you're going to protect it. There's no way you're going to know when it's been attacked, right? Correct documentation is critical. And really, today, in today's world, you have to have some type of database that keeps track of your equipment if you're a even moderate-sized organization. So, if you can't do this, then you're not going to be able to manage the security in your organization because you're not going to. This is essential to patching. This is essential to patching, traffic flow analysis, data management, data protection, and a number of other security principles that are wrapped around this. And it goes back to, if you don't know what you have, how in the world are you going to protect it? Tied to this is system sprawl. And this is just, we keep adding to our environment. We expand the number of systems over time. As we move forward in technology, technology requires new assets. Old assets aren't recovered or decommissioned. This can be incredibly difficult in virtual environments where a keyboard click or a mouse click can create a new server, a group of servers, or an entire environment. We can spin these things up in something like AWS or Google Cloud or Azure, and they may sit out there. We may go do a little bit of testing, spin up 10 or 20 or 50 servers, go to do something and forget that those servers are out there running. Now we're paying for them. Now there's vulnerable systems out there. Depending on how they're configured, they may be a giant gateway into your environment. Documentation helps alleviate this. Following processes helps alleviate this. Architectural planning and review is critical to this. Change control and change management is critical. When we talk about system sprawl, it's, you start with a number of servers or systems. Let's say you start with 100 servers, and a new project comes along and you add 10, and another project comes along and you add 10, and you do this over and over and over again, and pretty soon you've got 200 or 300 servers. Some of those old ones are still out there running that didn't get decommissioned. We moved on to the new thing, we didn't think about it, or it was extra work that we didn't think about. So we're sprawling. We don't have correct documentation on these things. We don't clean up the old systems. Remember, decommissioning old systems is a process unto itself. So we have to go through, make sure we take care of what's going on with the data of that old system. Can we delete it? Do we have to retain it? What's going on with the hardware and software? Can we reuse licenses? Can we recover hardware and use it for something else? How do we get rid of it? All that stuff. System sprawl is just, we keep expanding our IT infrastructure and we don't ever clean it up. So that's in a nutshell. That, in a nutshell, is what we're talking about when we talk about system sprawl and undocumented assets. We have to document. It's something no one really likes to do. Folks really, we talk about documentation. We talk about, keeping things updated and doing the paperwork. That just, it's not the fun stuff. It's not configuring servers. It's not things most people want to do, right? So, change gears here. And let's look at same thing. We're still in 1.6, and we're going to talk about architectural design and weaknesses. So this is really the high-level view of our organization. We should have an architect. We should have an IT architect that's building the IT environment, and we should also have a security architect that's making sure that security is working across that entire infrastructure. So flaws in architecture of the organizational IT design and flaws in architecture of the security design lead to architectural and design weaknesses. Because this is at the enterprise level, we're talking about devices and systems and configurations that cost tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes in the millions of dollars, to change if we don't get it right. That's why architectural planning and design planning is so important. It's costly and difficult to correct once it's in place. It's often fully requiring a redesign of the environment to fix this. So some things we see over and over again in the real world, so-called real world, right? In people that are practitioners of security is flat networking environments, right? Where everything's flat, a big flat network, one big giant network where if an attacker gets on one machine, they could easily go across the entire network, pivot, and attack any other machine. So we want to compartment. We want to have stratification. We want to have different environmental levels of our network. We want to have separation of our network, right? Big flat networks used to be a thing people did. We don't want to do that. IT systems incompatible with security systems. So we think about security systems. Security is going to build an environment that supports IT. Security will have things like logging and monitoring, SIEM, antivirus, patching software. All these things are going to support the IT infrastructure. If IT builds systems, for example, maybe they're not compatible with the logging and monitoring system, they're not going to be compatible with the environmental SIEM, security event manager, and that means we're going to have a problem with our architecture. Something's going to have to give. Depending on how much money has been spent on those two components, it may be security that has to change, or maybe the IT folks have to change. But it's a design weakness. We didn't think about that when we went to build the IT infrastructure, or we didn't think about it when we built the security infrastructure. Failure to plan for the future is another problem. If the security and the IT architecture leadership doesn't keep track of where the business wants to go, it's easy for the business to point to something like, we want to go to cloud in the next 2 to 3 years. IT and security need to be able to adjust to that, be able to start moving over. There's different tools that take care of security in the cloud than take care of security on premise. And we have to be able to plan for that. So architecture and design, we have to think about not only what does architecture look like today, how does it all work, how does it all connect, what are some flaws with it, but how are we planning for the future? How are we keeping track of what the business wants to do? And then one thing I found, and this is not going to be testable. This is not something that is on Security Plus. This is something outside of Security Plus. When I was getting ready for this, I found the software blog that talks about common architecture weakness enumeration. And this is honestly a little more focused at software, but it certainly can be used in your infrastructure planning, right? So there's three big weaknesses that this common architecture weakness enumeration calls out. Flaws of omission, and this is such design flaws resulting from ignoring security requirements or potential threats, such as flaws to identify decisions that were never made, right? So we go through and we see things like we don't ever think the hacker's going to get inside our environment, so we maybe store passwords in plain text on computers, desktops. We don't think that's a big deal because we probably, the attackers never get inside, so that's a flaw of omission. We don't ever think there. Flaw of commission is flaws that refer to the design decisions made, which could lead to undesirable consequences. And that's, we pick a certain program that's going to provide protection for malware protection. And it also maybe is a tool that is found later, or maybe found before we picked it, to also be providing a feed of intelligence back to a nation state or something like that. It's a flaw commission. And then flaw of realization, the design decision is correct, but the implementation suffers from mistakes. So it's a good product, but we implemented it poorly. So three things that the common architecture weakness enumeration, if you ever hear that, it's one of the things that's kind of on the fringe of this architecture and design. I really hadn't heard much about it, so I think it's good to share with you. Maybe something you can use in your daily life. Talk about this: flaws of omission, flaws of commission, and flaws of realization. Three different ways we can have weaknesses in our architecture that can probably come back to haunt us a little bit. So that's the rundown. That's your coverage of two more topics in the Security Plus Domain 1. As always, I'm Jim with Cyber-Recon. Love to see your comments. Comment below. Love to hear what you got to say. Have you seen any problems with architecture in the past? Have you experienced any system sprawl problems? What's that lead to? What can you tell all of us about? We'd love you to hit the bell so you'll be notified when new comment comes out. Subscribe. Obviously share with your friends. And obviously like. Those all help us. Anyways, I will see you next time, and be safe out there.